Okay, so we'll continue where we were up last week. We started last week, Siman Samach Vov, just the beginning, and we'll go Siman Samach Vov in Siman Nin High. I might have to end a little bit early, I might have to leave, but hopefully we'll be able to make through these two Simonim Samach Vov in Nin High, and both Simonim are very important Simonim, important halachas. I would just want to start with something which what's his name? Rabbi Wagner brought up, sent me regarding, I don't know, he posted something, a copy of some kind of halacha that regarding Chabad houses. When a person, we spoke last week, if a Chabad house, Rabbi Berkowitz was asked, if a Chabad house didn't have a minyan, they davened, you didn't have 6 people who davened, you didn't have 10 people, they davened Shemoneh Esrei, quiet Shemoneh Esrei. Could you say Shlich Tzibur could say Chazuras Hashatz? And my answer was no. Pashtus, you cannot. So he posted some kind of psak which says the Imre Yosher holds that you could say Chazuras Hashatz. Now over there, first of all, the Imre Yosher talks about in middle of the Shtil Shemoneh Esrei, the quiet Shemoneh Esrei, a 10th person walks in. So that's a little bit easier also, because after all, by the quiet Shemoneh Esrei, you had 10 people. But Bechlal, whatever the Imre Yosher writes, it's not clear. And the Alter Rebbe for sure says, according to the Alter Rebbe, if you didn't have 6 people davening and 4 people being there, you didn't have a minyan, you cannot say Chazuras Hashatz, the full regular Chazuras Hashatz. There are some poskim which will say you could say the whole Chazuras Hashatz, but according to the Alter Rebbe, you cannot say. Now, the Alter Rebbe has a Siman Samach Tes, there's a whole halacha, which is called Poirsin al Shema. What does that mean? It means like this. If a person, and it's a thing which we could see from time to time in shuls, a person comes into a shul and the minyan is over, but he didn't hear Kaddish, he didn't hear Borchi, he didn't hear Kedusha. What does he do? He davens for himself, and before he comes to before Borchi, he finishes Yishtabach, and he says Kaddish. There's 10 people in shul. Again, it has to be 10 people in shul. If not, you cannot say Kaddish and Borchi. So he says Kaddish, then he says Borchi, then he davens further. Then when it comes to Shemoneh Esrei, it comes to Shemoneh Esrei, he davens Shemoneh Esrei loud, and he says Kedusha, although he's the only person which did not hear Kedusha, he says Kedusha, and then he says Atu Kodesh Tila Keila Kodesh, and then he says the rest of the davening, he says it when it's quiet. He doesn't say it Chazuras Hashatz. That's halacha Siman Samach Tes that you could do. That's called Poirsin al Shema. That means in order you should be able to say Kaddish, Borchi, and Kedusha, you don't need to have 6 people who didn't daven. That's halacha which has to do with a tzibur. That's halacha which has to do with Chazuras Hashatz. But to say Kedusha, even if you have one person which didn't say Kedusha yet, or Kaddish, or Borchi, and there is 10 people in the shul, you could say Kaddish, Borchi, again, as I mentioned before, and you could say Shemoneh Esrei till after the Keila Kodesh, which includes also Kedusha, but after the Keila Kodesh, you have to be quiet. Now, there are some poskim which say that in this case, for sure, it should be quiet. But if, for instance, you have 10 people in a shul, which all of them daven b'yechidus, but nobody heard Kedusha, so then you could make a Kedusha. That means you could daven again, say Baruch, start Shemoneh Esrei, till after a Keila Kodesh, and loud, and you say Kedusha. That means you didn't have a minyan which davened. There was 10 people who davened beichidus. So what's doing after a Kaila Kudish? Could you daven the rest of the Shemana Esrei loud? In this case, if such a thing happens to Chabez Chabad, according to some poskim, you could say Shemana Esrei, that means Chazuras Hashatz loud. But again, it's not considered Chazuras Hashatz. It doesn't have all the halachas of Chazuras Hashatz. And you cannot be yoy to someone who basically never davened. According to the Alter Rebbe, no. You could only say Kedusha. And after a Keilah Kudush, you have to say the rest of the davening quiet. So going back to the question which Rabbi Wagner brought up, in that case, when 9 people davened Shemana Esrei and the 10th people walked in the middle of Shemana Esrei, that means when the tzibur was still davening, then you could rely on the Imre Oyosher to say Iva Chazuras Hashatz. But if you have 9 people, 10 people who daven beichidus, or 6 people, you didn't have a minyan, and after a while they come together in a shul, you could say Kaddish, Borchi, you could say Shemana Esrei again, till after Akela Kudish, and the rest you have to be quiet. That's a Simon Samach test, how the Alter Rebbe explains it. So that's, just wanted to clarify. So therefore, going back to our question, you have a Chabad house, you didn't have a minyan to daven Shemana Esrei. That means you had only 9 people, or you had 6 people, or wherever it should be. You didn't have same 10 people. You cannot say Chazuras Hashatz, even if a 10th person walks in, because you never had a tefillah beichidus, b'tzibur. But you could say Chazuras Hashatz till after a Keilah Kudish in order the people should hear a Kedusha. I just wanted to clarify if you have any questions.
Yeah. I just wanted. What do you mean? You could say Chazuras Hashatz by Paris al Shema. He's the person is saying it for the first time. So what you're saying is somebody could say it if it's by him the first time to make a Kedusha, because you can't. You could do a second time until after a be quiet.
Even a second time you could do if people didn't hear Kedusha. This is what the Alter Rebbe writes. Yeah, Simon Samachtes. Even if you davened already, you could still daven again. Which a person didn't daven is better that he should daven. But if you don't have all of them davened already, you could say again, twice in the Shema, even if you davened already.
But how is it a Shemana Esrei if you're finishing by a Keilah Kodesh?
No, you only finish it in loud after a Keilah Kodesh. The rest of the Shemana Esrei you have to daven.
But he already said Shemana Esrei once.
Oh, okay, but in order to say again Shemana Esrei, in order to say Kedusha, you have the right to say again Kriyash. If you have a person which did not hear, let's tell you how the Alter Rebbe writes it.
Which simon is it in?
Simon Samachtes.
So basically, you're doing it as a tefillas nedava, basically, and then just saying the beginning.
Yeah. Even yeah. You see in Samachtes, Sivdala. That's the whole. It's a very complicated halacha, very complicated simon. But Lamaisa, the only thing what we do see how to do it is we see when a person did not daven yet, he has a right. People do it, and if that means you can only do it only if it's a place where you won't have any time a minyan. If you could go in another shul and have a minyan, of course you don't do it. But if you come in a place which you don't have, you have only 1 minyan and you missed it, then you have to say the Shema. You have to say Kaddish and Barchi, and then say Kriyas Shemana Esrei. That's it's not our siga. Just wanted to clarify that you cannot bring a raya from that imriyoshin. Yes.
One thing regarding a minyan, is there any thing according to the Alter Rebbe, right? If you have talking in a Chabad house, you have 9 men, and you have a child of 12 years old, or 10 years old, or of 11 years old. There is such a thing brought. You should hold the siddur, hold the chumash, v'chulu. Is there room to be mekel in a Chabad house and to be, in other words, the 9 men that are there are all frum, some of them are anash, but a lot of times we have a problem with a minion. But there's like a 12-year-old lately which is coming, his bar mitzvah is coming up. Is there, according to Alter Rebbe, okay to hold? I was told once that Rabbi Gordon, Alav Shalom, he was the first shliach here in New Jersey, that he would do it many times. But again, so we're talking back many years.
This is in Siman, which we are going to cover. We are going to cover Mitzvah Shem today. But since you brought it up, let me answer your question right away.
Thank you.
Siman, look at the Siman High, the Alter Rebbe.
Yeah.
High. The Alter Rebbe writes like this. The Alter Rebbe writes like this. There are some people who Michael that a child can daven if he knows what davening means. That means even if it's more than 6 years old. And one child, you see Sif High, if you have Sif High, you should have it.
Yeah, I'm looking right here. Bavachi Akotin Yosef ben Vav Shana.
Yeah. V'yesh Omrim. Yeah. She'ayni Sheminyan. Yeah. The Alter Rebbe says some brings him a chloikus. And what does he finish?
Einim chesboisim shenoigim lahaka b'shas atcha.
1 second. So the Chaynikir, that means we pasken that we don't rely on a child with a chumash. Not only with a chumash, even with a sefer Torah, we don't rely on it. And the halacha is that you cannot make a minion. But it says, you cannot be moich on it. It says, I pasken basically that you shouldn't do it. Don't do it. If you do it, and you see somebody is doing it, but Lamasa, our post can say that we didn't see such a thing. If I'm not mistaken, I think there is also a letter of the Rebbe, which the Rebbe writes. See, in a Gersa Kodesh Heilig Ches, Dreish Einwurf. So over there, the Rebbe writes. Let me see. Give me a second. Okay, so the Rebbe writes like this. Regarding your question, if you be Matzar of cotton to the minion, listen what the Rebbe writes. It's a thing which is very funny. It's a milsa de tmiyah by nanash. V'chayin anshish l'mayne mebedine kezish yitzurich farsam gam shom hanukis rabbesainen is yaini. B'mayli yeshidayik b'zeh yoyser iladati ein lasses es hanal. The Rebbe writes in that brief that we shouldn't rely on such a heter.
Okay.
The Rebbe writes, but the Rebbe, somebody in Melbourne, Australia, Rabbi Herzog from Australia asked the question if we could rely on it, and the Rebbe says it's a milsa de tmiyah, and you should not do such a thing. Now, again, if the frat in a Chabad house, we have to understand that whatever we do in Chabad houses, this is what they get the impression what it is. So if they're going to see you use 9 people and a boy, they're going to feel that this is how we could do it. So that's why you have to be extra. I know a story of Reb Gershom Mendel Gorelik once came, he didn't hear Kriyas Torah. He came to his son-in-law in a Chabad house and he didn't have Kriyas Torah. So he wanted by Mincha that they should take out the Sefer Torah and read because he wanted to be Yoitza. And I'm sure there were 6 people by Mincha which didn't have hear Kriyas Torah. He wanted to learn. And the Adam says, no, I don't want. Because again, if I'm going to do such a thing, from now on, they're going to see there's such a thing as learning by Mincha. In a Chabad house, you have to be very careful how to do this kind of things. Befrat that the Alter Rebbe writes, so therefore, we don't rely on it. And we have the Rebbe writes exactly that we shouldn't do it. So exactly, to answer your question, you don't do it. And make sure to have a minion. And if not, one day, if you're not going to have a minion, you can make sure eventually you should have a minion. If you're going to get used to it, to have a child, it is not a thing which... but this
Could I add something?
Hi. Yeah.
I want to add something. I asked once the Shaila to the local Rav in California, and he used the expression, maybe he was quoting from the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, Hagam lichbosh esamalka ima babayis. In other words, in a Chabad house, you're going to not follow the Alter Rebbe. But I know there were some shluchim that actually did this, but there's another shaila, because if you depend on a cotton, you can only do the kadeshim that are mukhrach. You definitely can't do extra kadeshim. And usually you want to do it because somebody's an oven and he wants to say kaddish, and that could be on top of that shaila.
Yeah, but when we say not kadeshim, which is mukhrach, it means kaddish after aleinu. Till then, is not kaddish, which is not mikvah.
Yeah, that's what he says. The kaddish after aleinu is only a minute, right?
Only kaddish after aleinu. Other kaddish we could say, but again, you're not going to say don't say kaddish after aleinu, don't say after tilam. You're going into problems. There's always a klal in the Indian of a tzibur. In the Indian of a tzibur, you don't do things which is funny, which they don't realize, especially by Chabad, which they don't people who are not brought up with halacha and they don't know all this. You know, they're gonna say, what else? You know, there's a joke. Was one lady said when he asked Shaila, and the Rav was matter, he says, what else does the Rabbonim know that it's mutter and they don't tell us? So you understand what I'm saying? You have to be very careful when you're doing things which is different. And even though according to Allah you could do it, you don't do it in public. Especially over here when we have the Alter Rebbe, and the Rebbe writes that you don't do it, so we don't rely on it.
What Rabbi Gorella could have done is had a minyan for Korea without mincha.
Okay.
Then it wouldn't have been a...
Yeah, it wouldn't be that funny. Okay. But how will they take it? Again, this is what a shlich has to himself make achlotas. The Rebbe used to say, I always, you have to see what's doing the Rov al-Asar.
Yeah.
You know, what is the minig al-Asar? You have to show it to these things very carefully. Okay, so now let's go get back to Simon Samachvov regarding the halachas of hefsek, which is very, very important. And once we go through the Simon, we're going to understand what the chart in back of most of the Sidurim, the new ones have a nice, beautiful chart, which is basically very good, and it's mamash according to the Alter Rebbe. So again, we started last week that the Mishnah says, as betocha pairik, we answer only mitnai hayira, and we don't ask shalom from no one. By pairik le pairik, shoel mitnai hakuvet, imay shiv lecholud. Yeah. And we mentioned also, what does it mean, kuvet? Kuvet means whom apialoch you have to be mechaber, which is basically a Talmud Chacham, which is good ladar, which is oviv imoy, which you have a mitzvah of being mechaber, but it's not yira because of a melech, because yira of a melech you are permitted even in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei if you're afraid that he's going to kill you or he's going to harm you. So the Alter Rebbe says a Talmud Chacham good ladar you could also ask. That's called mitnei kovet, but not a Talmud Chacham, just a Talmud Chacham. Another thing is very important that we have to note that all these halachas, which we said that you could answer mitnei hayira, ask mitnei kovet, you could ask mitnei hayira, all these things. Zungshen achroinam bismanayinu that today's day the Mishnah brings down, other points brings down that today's day people are not offended that you know your own answer. That means they understand that you're up in the middle of Shemoneh, in the middle of Krishma, and therefore this halacha does not rely on this kind of halacha. So if somebody gives you Shalom Aleichem in the middle of Krishma, today's day your own answer, you show him how in the middle of Krishma, basically he's going to stop and not didn't ask, don't get offended. He's going to be ashamed that he asked to begin with. Okay. So I just want to make it clear, but although the halacha is like this, that la halacha is nachronim, it's not the guy lamas. But wie is your negaya? It is negaya where you make a hefsek, but the vurim shebekdisha. The vurim shebekdisha. So again, there is betocha pairik, beemtza pairik. Wherever you are permitted to make a hefsek, beemtza pairik, look, the Alter Rebbe is not only beemtza pairik, it is also even beemtza posik. It's Shema Yisrael in Baruch Shem that you cannot answer. It is as if you met in Shemoneh Esrei, you cannot answer for anything. That means not for Omeyesh Me'erabo, not for Kedusha, not for Borchi. Not only in the middle of the Pusik, Shema Yisrael, and Baruch Shem Kavod Mechisel Levud, between Shema Yisrael and Baruch Shem Kavod Mechisel Levud, also you don't make a hefsik. And as the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, Shema Yisrael is Chida Lua, Baruch Shem is Chida Tetua, it's one part, it's as if one inyan, and therefore you don't stop in it. Some poskim say that whenever you stop in the middle of a Pusik, you have to make sure to end the inyan. It has to be finish the inyan. That means if you hold Alavafim al Avshem, Ikshartem Oisam starts a new inyan. So you could stop after Alavafim al Avshem, stop, answer, and then you say Ikshartem. Because that's between inyanim. Other points can hold no, that you can stop even in the middle of an inyan also. It's a bit machlokas. And the Alter Rebbe is machriya la halacha l'maisa that if you cannot stop by answering an inyan, because if you're going to wait till you finish answering an inyan, your oman might be oman yisoyma. Yeah, you cannot answer afterwards when the olim said ready oman. So if you are afraid that you will lose that oman, you could stop in the middle of the inyan, like the poskim which say that you can stop in the middle of an inyan. But he adds on, when you go back, you should start from an inyan. That means, although you stop the middle of Ikshartem lois halidechu, which is the middle of a pasik, when you're going back, you should start from Ikshartem and not finish Voiletuvas by Nanech. And this is the Achrush, the Alter Rebbe says, Lamaisi. He writes in your Maise, this is how you need to do. Why? Because if you are going to, why don't we rely on the person which say you can stop in the middle of an inyan? As I mentioned before, if not, you might lose an omen. And since answering omen is a mitzvah rabba, so therefore you can stop whenever it can. Now, first of all, what is Bein HaProkim? Let's first start the end of the simon. What is considered Bein HaProkim? What is considered B'toch HaPayrik? Bein HaProkim in Berches Krishma means after the first bracha, that means Yoitzer HaMoiris. After the second bracha, which is Aboich Bam Yisru Be'ahavu. After Baruch Shem Kavod Mechisel Levud Ve'ahavtu, that's Bein HaProkim. After Shema, the end of Shema, before Iboyim Shemoya, that's Bein HaProkim. And before Vayomer, it's Bein HaProkim. All these places is considered Bein HaProkim, and we have lenient, which we're going to come soon. But first we should understand what is Bein HaProkim. Means when it finishes a Peirik, which is again between the first bracha and the second bracha, between the second bracha and Shema, between Shema and Ve'ahavtu, between Ve'ahavtu and Voyim Shemoya, between Voyim Shemoya and Vayomer. After Vayomer is everything already Bein HaProkim, which we're going to see is the Gai L'Loch. That's called Bein HaProkim and Prokim. By the way, when it comes to Psikid Zimra, Bein HaProkim means between the halalikos. Yeah, that's Bein HaProkim, which has his separate halachas. But now we're talking about Bein HaProkim and Berches Krishma. Okay, after Vayomer is called Be'emtza HaPayrik. After Gual Yisrael, that's already called Shomein Esra, because there's a halacha that you have to be matzmich Gual Gil L'Tfilah. Because we have a posig Gil Rusi Mina Fi Ve'egli Hashem Tzir Ve'Geali, and right afterwards it says Yanch Hashem B'Yom Tzur. So we see that you have that's Tfilah. Yanch Hashem B'Yom Tzur is Tfilah. So we say that you have to be Masmach Gil L'Tfilah. Masmach Gil L'Tfilah is as if it is a middle of Shomein Esra, and you don't answer anything. Okay, so we have clear what we need to know. What is Bein HaProkim? What is Be'emtza HaPayrik? Now, what is the halachas? So, if a person, for instance, does not have talis tefillin, he comes to shul, he forgot his talis tefillin, he came down from the plane, he forgot it at home. So, and he's going to get tefillin. He's going to get tefillin eventually. It's going to get to him. Again, I think we mentioned it last week that the Alter Rebbe writes that if it's not a problem of losing Zman Tefillah, and you have a question of davening without tefillin with a minyan or davening with tefillin without a minyan, the Alter Rebbe paskens rather daven without a minyan, but daven with tefillin. Because davening, saying Krishma and tefillah, also Shemoneh Esrei, is very, very important. It should be with tefillin, because if not, it's Kamaid Zayd Shaken. We say by Krishma, you don't have Krishma. And even by davening is a Inyan Godel, because as the Rosh of the Alter Rebbe writes, of all Machashmayim, Bishleimus. So if you're not going to lose man tefillah, then you should basically wait, daven, don't daven, and daven with tefillin without a minyan. But what if you get talis tefillin in the middle of davening? What do? So the halacha is like this. Davening with a talis is not a chiyuv, because the chiyuv of mitzvah esed reise is when you have a beged, which is basically has 4 kanfas, then you have to put on tefillin. But there's no mitzvah that you should put on a beged in order to be a mechayev tefillin. So therefore, it's not a chiyuv, and therefore, if it comes the talis comes in middle of Berges Krishma, that means if it comes Berges Krishma, then he cannot be mafsig saying the bracha. You could put it on, the talis, but you don't make a bracha. After davening, you mashbish b'tfil, b'tzitzes. That means you sort of say, pick up the tfil, the tzitzes. So that's as if you're putting it on now, and you make a bracha. That's halucha lamaisa. That's legaba talis. By the way, we don't have it in this simon, but it should be a shleimus. When it happens, same thing in Psike de Zimra, is also halucha like this: that you don't make a bracha in be'emse Psike de Zimra, even by a broken. You wait till after Yishtabach, between Yishtabach and Kaddish, you can make a bracha. But you don't make a bracha on tzitzes, even a Psike Zimra, which is much more lenient than Berches Krishma, you don't say Kaddish, you don't say Berches tzitzes, even by a broken. You wait till after Yishtabach before Kaddish. In Avad, Alachas Kama Vekama, in Berches Krishma, which is much more Chumar, you don't make a bracha. When it comes to Tefillin, it's the Alter Rebbe like this. You could make a bracha, you could put it on, that's for sure, but you could make a bracha, and if you could do it, it's like this. By Berches Krishma, you should wait till, make tefillin, you should wait till Baina Prokem. You should wait till Baina Prokem if you can. That means before Krishma. That means if you get it beginning of Yoitzer Oyer, then you finish the bracha Yoitzer Amoyres, and then you make the bracha. But if it is already you started Shema, then you can make even betocha payri. So therefore, tefillin when you put on, if you're putting it on before Shema, then you should wait till Baina Prokem, then make the bracha. But yeah, okay. But once you have Shema, then you don't say anymore a bracha. You could say any time a bracha, even betoch prukim, because putting on tefillin, you should have tefillin when you have say Shema. In achas kama, we want you should have it also by tefillah. When it comes to other devarim shebekadisha, is be'emtza payrik. You could be mafsik for Kaddish, for Kedusha, for Borchi, and Moedim. But that's the clueliest thing. Again, Kaddish, Kedusha, Borchi, and Moedim, you could be mafsik. And that will be even Be'emtza Pairik and even Be'emtza Pusik. Why? Because since you are permitted to be mafsik mitna hayira and ansik mitna kovet, alachas kama v'kama, for the Rebbeinu Shloilam, which is even for a Busi V'dom, you have the right to be mafsik. Alachas kama for the for kubet from the Rebbeinu Shloilam, you are permitted to be mafsik, and therefore you could be mafsik for Kaddish Baruch Kedusha Moedim. The Alter Rebbe adds on, and all other mitzvot which is mitzvah averes. For instance, if you hear a thunder, yeah, you have a thunder. Now you cannot wait till end of the peirik to make a bracha or whatever, because you're going to lose it. You have to make it right away. So therefore, if you thunder or a blitz, what is it called? How do you say a blitz? A lightning, or even a caches, a rainbow, which we are afraid basically is the Achronim. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say it, but the Achronim say that since the Alter Rebbe paskens that you are permitted to make a bracha in the middle of Berches Krishna, you are permitted to say on a thunder or a lightning. The same will also be on a rainbow. Now the Mishnah Berurah says no, you don't answer, you don't make a bracha on acacias, you don't make a bracha on thunder or lightning. But again, the Alter Rebbe paskens you could make, and this is how we do. If a person holds the middle of Berches Krishna and he has a lightning or thunder, he should make a bracha even me'emtza peirik, because he cannot wait. He's going to lose it. He can make a bracha. When it comes to what could we just mentioned Kaddish, Kedusha, Baruchi, and Moedim. But that's not everything. That's not the whole Kaddish. That's not the whole Moedim. Let's just start dividing it. When it comes to Moedim, you have to bow. As we know, as we mentioned last week's sheet, that always when the tzibur bows, you have to bow. And you only say Moedim anach telach. That's the only reason why we say Moedim is we shouldn't, the whole shul are saying Moedim. And it's as if we don't agree with the tzibur which say Moedim anach telach. So therefore, we have to say Moedim together with the tzibur. But that's but enough, only by the 3 words Moedim anach telach. That should be enough. You don't have to say the whole thing, but that's already enough to say that we are holding together with the whole tzibur, and we are not chas v'sholom a koifer. When it comes to Baruchi, then you say Baruch Hashem Amvorich L'Olam. Now, some nischuos you say more. Yisburach v'yishtabach, especially in the Ashkenazish Sedirim, there's a minhag that you say more. In some Sedirim, it's printed inside in the Siddur. The Alter Rebbe says clearly that this you should not say, because that's only a minhag. And since it's only a minhag, you shouldn't say this.
Wouldn't Vayatzmach for Kanai also be a minhag though?
The what?
Vayatzmach for Kanai. Wouldn't that also be a minhag?
Yeah, but we're going to get to Kaddish in a minute. We'll get to Kaddish. We'll see. It's not the whole Kaddish we could say. But the Alter Rebbe says, when it comes to Baruchi, first of all, we're not talking about the Shlich Tzibur, we're talking about the Oinem. We are in the middle of Berches Krishna. So the guy who says Berches Krishna doesn't say Yatzmach B'Konai. So again, Moedim, we say only Moedim Anach Nelach. When it comes to Baruchi, we say only Baruch Hashem Vorech L'Olam V'od. Another thing which you could say, we're gonna see when you hold the middle of Berches Krishna and the Shlich Tzibur in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah comes to Kriyas HaTorah, and it's Kriyas HaTorah, so you are permitted to answer Baruch Hashem Avorech, the same as you are permitted to answer Baruch Hashem Avorech by Baruchi before Berches Krishna. The Alter Rebbe could also say Umanah Berches HaTorah. Now this is a big machlokes. What does it mean Umanah Berches HaTorah? Some say what means that if a person did not answer Baruch Hashem Avorech L'Olam V'od and he hears that the Shlich Tzibur answers Baruch Hashem Avorech L'Olam V'od, he should say Omain. We don't say Omain al Baruch Hashem Avorech, as it says in the Sidurim. Yeah, remember after Baruchi it says Va'ain Onim Achram Baruch Hashem Avorech L'Olam V'od. We don't say Omain. If you see in the Sidurim, you see it says clearly. Why? What's the reason, by the way? Because once we say Baruchi, we are already considered is Emtza Peirik. So therefore, we cannot say Omain. Since we don't have to say Omain, when you say Omain, you say Omain Emtza Peirik when it's not necessarily. So therefore, let me digress a second. Since we the Alter Rebbe writes in the Siddur that you shouldn't answer after Baruch Hashem Avorech L'Olam V'od, Omain, that means he holds that after Baruch Hashem Avorech, it is Be'emtza Peirik. I'm going to tell you another law which is very important, which most people do not understand. This halacha. A person comes to shul, Ma'ariv. Yeah, he wants to daven with this minyan, but he didn't say shira malas. The shlich tzibur said already barchi, and the oilem davened started to say the berches krishma. He wants to say shira malas. You cannot say it. Since b'shas you said barchi already, and you are planted down with this minyan, you are as if you started already berches krishma, and when you started berches krishma, you cannot say shira malas. The same will go also. Some people come to Abbas Medrash in a shul, they want to daven with this minyan. There's only one minyan, but the shlich tzibur daven is very slow. So he decides he's going to talk till Shema Yisrael, and he's going to start berches krishma only after the shlich tzibur will come to the middle of Shema Yisrael. So he's talking after Baruch. You cannot talk afterwards. Because since you are going to daven with this minyan, and you answer Baruch Hashem Baruch Limud, it is as if you said already Baruch Ato Hashem, you start Baruch Krishma, and you cannot speak a word. It's very important. People do not know it. Most of the people in the shuls do not know that. That first of all, you cannot say V'yirachim Shira Malas after Shlich Tzibur said Baruch. And second of all, you cannot talk afterwards. You have to start right away davening, because that's already part of Be'emtza Apayrik. So let's go back. So the Alter Rebbe writes, you can say Amen, Am Baruch Hashem Avoirech. So the Alter Rebbe writes in other simon that when a person says, the Shlich Tzibur says Baruch, and you did not answer Baruch Hashem Avoirech Limud, and you hear the Shlich Tzibur say Baruch Hashem Avoirech Limud, you say Amen, and it's as if you answered Baruch Hashem Avoirech Limud. But you cannot do it after if you been a program. So some poison the vicious rod, and the other wants to say that when the Shulchan Aruch says that you could say Omen Aberach Satoira, he means this. If a person is oil Latoira and he says Baruch and you say Omen on it, that means that you could say Omen Aberach Satoira. But most poison disagree, and the same is the Alter Rebbe too. And the Alter Rebbe holds that that's not considered Omen Aberach Satoira. Omen Aberach Satoira means the bracha which the person which is oil Torah makes. So the Alter Rebbe paskens that if a person is holding a middle of berches krishma and a person is oil Torah, he can answer Baruch Hashem Avoirech, and he can also answer Amen on the bracha which the berches Torah which he makes. Side the bracha before lining, side bracha after lining, he can say Amen. That's regarding Baruch. When it comes to Kaddish, yeah.
You jumped in regard with Ma'ariv all of a sudden. You got me off track there.
I said
if I come late to shul,
yeah,
and I walk in and the chazan says Baruch Hashem Avoirech, and I answer Baruch Hashem Avoirech. There's no other minyan in town. This is my minyan. So I'm going to daven here Ma'ariv.
Yes.
Okay. Now I didn't say Burachim, I said a Ma'ariv. You
can't say it anymore. You can say that after davening. You cannot say it now.
So that's it. So I answer Baruch Hashem Baruch Limud, and now I continue Shabbat Dvarim Ma'ariv.
Yes, exactly. This is exactly what I was saying. That since you are going to daven here, you answer Baruch Hashem Baruch Limud, it's as if you started at berches krishma, and you cannot say anything. You cannot shmuz, and you cannot say v'yirachim shira malas. You cannot say anything. You cannot even say ashiyutza.
Right.
Bad. Because it's as if you're starting. If you don't want to daven with this minyan, that's something else.
No, I'm davening with this minyan. Okay,
but
so now
davening with this minyan once
is deleted.
Yes, this is exactly what I was saying. It doesn't say now.
I'm saying.
But since I mentioned the thing that the Alter Rebbe, we don't say Omen Acher Barchi, Baruch Hashem Avoirech, I just wanted to bring to your attention a thing which people do not know, that you cannot say Shira Malas after you answer Baruch Hashem.
And I should say it again after. I should say it after davening.
Yeah, why not? It's a capital Tehillim. What's the big deal?
A capital Tehillim, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Or I was going to suggest maybe I daven Mincha Marav oftentimes by an Ashkenaz minyan. So when they finish Mincha, immediately they say V'hurachim and the Nubarchu. There's no Kaddish. So even if I'm there on time and prepared to daven with them for Ma'ariv, according to this halacha, I'm never going to be able to say, unless the chazan is very, very son of V'hurachim.
That's right. So
what if I don't answer Baruchu and say Baruchu at the end of the minyan?
No, that's not acceptable. B'chlal. It's not just push it. This whole thing. The Alter Rebbe says our meaning is not to say Baruch afterwards. Now, if you didn't hear Baruch, it's nicht posh. You could say a Baruch, But make it like Gitchila. No, you don't do that. But I'll tell you what you should do. Say Shir Malas before he starts Shir Malas. You don't need a minion for that.
While they're saying Kaddish, like, well,
What?
while they're saying Kaddish at the end of Mincha.
Yeah. Say then it. Yeah. Exactly. But once you answer, and by the way, this is the Mishnah also masking. This halacha. Okay, when it comes to Kaddish, what can you answer by Kaddish? So there's a big machloikus aposkem also, what you could answer and what you cannot answer. Now, there's a Prima Gudam, which a lot of poskim go according to Prima Gudam, who says that you could answer Omein, Beina Prokam, again, Beina Prokam, and all the brachas. So therefore, when it comes to Kaddish, you could say Omein, whole Kaddish. Again, whole Kaddish means after the Miram Omein Vimru Omein. That means Kaddish. After then, that means from this Kabul, or Yeheshim Romarabu, that's not considered Kaddish. That's a Sufa. Kaddish means Omein of the Miram Omein. So according to the Prima Gudam, which a lot of boys can go according to that, you could answer Omein and whole Kaddish, Beina Prokam, and on the rest of brachas also. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't pass like the Prima Gudam. We have to remember. And the Alter Rebbe says you could not answer only two Omeins. One Omein is Yesh Rabba, till after his Burach. And the second Omein is the Minim Omein, that Ummah. These two Kadesh Omeins is very important. And only these two you can answer. You cannot answer all other brachas. So Beina Prokam, you cannot answer Omein and no bracha, only your bracha which you just finished. That means when you finish Yoitzer HaMoires, you don't say Omein. But when you hear the Shlich Tzibur say Yoitzer, broken. Because although the Alter Rebbe, but you don't answer on your bracha Omein, or even according to the people who answer Omein after a couple of brachas. There are a minute which after you say a couple of brachas, you say the last bracha, you answer Omein. For instance, a lot of people, there's a minute, a lot of even some Hasidim, that after Yishtabach, they answer Omein on their own bracha. The answer on their own bracha on Shomer Am Yisrael Luad, Amen. The answer, Amen. We don't hold like that. It's the Mechokse Pascha. We don't hold that. We don't say Amen after the bracha which you yourself made. But if you hear this bracha from the Shlich Tzibur, you can answer it. But only the bracha which you just finished. So comes out a very interesting halacha, by the way. If a person holds by Goal Yisrael B'Mayrev, and the Shlich Tzibur already finishes Shomer Am Yisrael U'ad, you cannot answer Amen. Although if the Shlich Tzibur would have answered Goal Yisrael, you could answer Amen because you just finished Goal Yisrael. But a different bracha which you are not up to, you cannot answer. It's very important halacha too, because sometimes a person comes late and he is up to Goal Yisrael, Burchat Hashem Goal Yisrael, and the Shlich Tzibur is saying Shomer Am Yisrael U'ad, you cannot answer Amen. And the same will go also by us, that we don't say Baruch Hashem Elo'olam, and the Shlich Tzibur and finishes Baruch Hashem Elo'olam, yeah, Amelech B'voy Yimid L'chlein Lo'ilevud V'al K'masach, we don't answer Omen on it. Because by us, we only answer Omen after Shomer Am Yisrael U'ad, our bracha, which we just finished, and not someone else's bracha. So Zug the Alter Rebbe, when it comes to Kaddish,
well, wait, you don't. If you're done with the meaning, you don't answer that Amen. Period.
No, you don't answer that. Other Amens which is not what you just finished, you don't answer.
No, you're davening with the minion. They're doing the Baruch Hashem Lo'olam. You didn't. You already finished. You finished your Shem and Salat. Now you're waiting. You're learning Rambam. You're looking in the cipher. You're waiting for him to finish it. Till Kaddish.
Yeah. You
then he says
Baruch.
You could answer.
You should not answer Omen on that. Yeah, but it's not your bro. Yeah. You shouldn't answer Omen on that. Exactly.
Okay.
You shouldn't answer Omen on that.
Okay.
Because
I daven with such a minion very often. Okay.
Okay. So now you know
So
what you got to do.
I don't answer that Amen. Okay.
You don't answer Omen on that. First of all, the Alter Rebbe says this broch is a hefsek, so the Omen will also be hefsek. But not that. It's not the broch which you finished. And not only that, you cannot answer Omen of Gol Yisroel. If you hold Shemalam Yisroel, the Shlich Tzibah finishes Gol Yisroel, you cannot answer Omen.
No,
Only
that's
on the broch which
right.
you just made.
Right. That I understand. Yeah.
Okay. So what do we answer by Kedusha? By Kaddish? 2 Omens. In the rest of the brach, Omens we don't answer. Only Omen Yeshmerabu and Omen B'Neva'om. That's by Kaddish. 4th thing which we're up to is Kedusha. What do we answer by Kedusha? So the Alter Rebbe Paskin Shulchan Aruch, and this is how the Mishnah Berurah Paskins, that you only say Kodesh in Baruch. You don't say Yimlech. And the Alter Rebbe brings down Yesh Misha Omer that you don't say, you do say Yimlech too. But V'ha'ikir Kismur Rishonim, you don't say Yimlech. This is what Alter Rebbe Paskins Shulchan Aruch. But in Seder Lamais, the Alter Rebbe says that Yimlech is a part of Kedusha. And our minig is we answer also Yimlech. That means we answer Kodesh, we answer Burich Kavoid, and we also answer Yimlech. Not like the Alter Rebbe Paskins in Shulchan Aruch, we Paskin according to the Siddur, and we answer also Yimlech. What kind of brucha could you answer Umain? Also Beina Prokam? Or yeah, that will be bruchas, even Beina, even B'tocha brucha, B'tocha Peirik, Oman of Kaila Kodesh, and Oman as I mentioned last week, we've said that these 2 bruchas are very important. Oman of Kaila Kodesh in Oman of Shmai. So let me just sum up what we just learned. When a person holds the Emtza Peirik, that means the Berchs Krishma, he can answer. The first thing is Kaddish, the 2 Omens by Kaddish, only 2 Omens by Kaddish. Kedusha, he could say all 3, not like Dishach, only the 3. And Kemivn, he cannot say, which basically we don't say, but if somebody has such a minute to say it, he cannot say it. But Moedim, you only say Moedim Banach Nilach. And Baruchi, you only say Baruch Hashem Baruch Hu. This is the 4 things which you say. When it comes to the 2 Omens of Shah Bruchas, you only answer of Al-Kaila Kodesh in Shemaya Tefillah. Is it clear till now? Let me just make if it's okay.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit about announcing pages?
Announcing pages, we're going into a whole separate thing. There are yeshli amilas lismoich to announce a page, because as you remember last week, we mentioned a thing which says in Shulchan Aruch, if a person holds a meal of Shemon Esrei and he has a suffix, if he needs to say over, he forgot something, if he has to repeat Shemon Esrei or not, he doesn't know what to do. So he could basically go to the bookshelf and take out the Shulchan Aruch and look it up. Not only that, the poskim say that if he doesn't know where to look up, he can even ask Bapeh from a Moira Ruah. If he could ask Beremiza or writing, that should be preference over saying. But even if such a case that he has to talk in order to know what he needs to do, he could say. So what do we see? Anything which has to do with the tefillah itself, it's not considered a hefsek. That's chaylik of tefillah. So the poskim say, it's more contemporary poskim which say that announcing pages, it is also going into this category. Since the people will not know what to do, what to daven, so that will go into that category, and you are permitted to announce it. Now again, if you could hold, I suggested for us about houses, you know exactly what you're going to announce. Yeah, you announce kedusha, you know exactly. Make like a cardboard, write kedusha now, which page it is, and pick it up. The people should see if it's possible. So therefore, you're going in. You make it much better because it is as if you make beremiza. As I mentioned before, if you can do beremiza, that means beremiza means you don't say it out clearly. then you could do that. You should do it that way. But if we cannot do it, and people will not know what to do, that you should announce the pages.
They have actually in a lot of shows like a giant, almost like a giant Rolodex that has 3 numbers, and they flip when it goes from pages. They flip the pages in this way.
Yeah, this should be done.
Could I?
Again, the poskim itself writes that if you could ask Beremiza or Beksav, you shouldn't talk. So why should we make it? We can make it in a way which shouldn't have a problem, but if a person cannot in such an situation, you can have on me to rely, on whom to rely. Yeah.
Could I add again? I'm a shliach in Huntington Beach, whatever it is, and I have
in where?
Not in Huntington Beach, California. I don't have a very from a crowd, but there are certain standards that somebody should make for Chabad houses. Like I've got to some Chabad houses, and the rabbi every Shabbos he announces the pages throughout Birchas Krishma and everything else, and it bothers me because they're the same people coming every week. How stupid are they? They can't figure out. So you have to know what might be proper, what not. And unfortunately, you could be more heter a lot because you say somebody doesn't know, and maybe it's going to help them. In my shul also, I have this thing, and I'm trying to find. There are some people who come late. And they're not very from whatever it is. They come late and they have a minhag. They come late. They go over to everybody and say Shalom Aleichem. Everyone is in the middle of davening, and somebody. We should teach, and I do that. In the middle of davening, you don't go over to anybody and so on and so on. But it happens sometimes, and then the person is in a dilemma. What's more important, Avos Yisrael and answering the guy, or going like that and later explaining to him? And some people are more heter a lot simply because they don't want to offend anybody, and Avos Yisrael overrides everything else. And yeah. For instance, I have some people. Why don't you come to the minyan? Shalom bayis. What am I going to argue about Shalom bayis? His wife needs him. I mean, how do you set standards?
I'm sorry, that's not a heter. Wives need your
I didn't think it's a heter.
When you work, not by davening. When it comes to davening, then everything falls away. Go take off from work. It's their money. Pechamecha, you don't. That's not Shalom bayis. Exactly. You got. Let me tell you something. You gotta teach the people. People are innocent. People are ignorant. It doesn't know the halacha. If you learn with them the halacha, I will tell you. I deal with a lot of people, and most of the people, when you tell them the halacha, they are accepting it. People do not know the halacha, but once you tell it in a nice way,
like you're breaking up. I don't hear you.
I say most of the people are ready to listen what the halacha says. If you tell it in a nice way, you have to know how to say it. Today's day, it's very important to know how to say things, because once upon a time, you used to say, and Shechanor says, "Ve'garm boy," yeah, you scream on him, or you have to be moiche. Today's day, it doesn't work like that. People get offended, stop davening. You have to know how to say it. But if you give a shir and a locha, a hilchas tefillah after davening for a half a minute, one halacha, and you come to that halacha that basically you cannot talk in the middle of davening, people will understand it. And at least if he wouldn't understand, he would talk. At least he will know that somebody else did not answer him Shalom Aleichem in the middle of davening. He shouldn't get offended because there's the halacha. But you're right. You cannot take all the killers if you don't need it. If you need it, again, something else. But if you don't need it, like a Chabad house, which every week the people come the same, why have to announce it? Make cards or make some kind of way, but that it should be. But if it comes in a new phase, that's something else.
Yeah, but to be Melamed Schus also, each Chabad house sometimes has its own dynamic, because I've been at in other words, it's a whole different mix of people, and sometimes it depends on the type of town you're in, and the people Bichlal have a different angle, or so just to be Melamed Schus is. I mean, Bichlal, I agree that in other words, what's the point? If we're going to show them, let's show them the right thing. What's the point otherwise? What do we at the same time? There's other very often a different dynamic in each place.
I agree with you 100%. The shliach has to see on his day. But again, Rabbi Berkowitz is bringing it up something. He says that the shliach itself should make his calculation and not rely on killers. If he feels that he needs to do it, that's something else. Jeder roof, jeder manig, jeder murid asra has to feel how he should go out with his community. But
I tell the people in the show many times, and dafka the people that need to hear it the most don't want to listen, that when somebody says Kaddish, it's a terrible thing to talk at that time. Also by Chazaras Hashatz. Those two places, it makes a special hadgasha not to talk. And sometimes you go to places and the Rabbanim are sitting there and they're saying, somebody's saying Kaddish and they're schmoozing. And it's as if there's no Shulchan Aruch.
I hate to tell you, that's not only in Chabad houses.
Well, I usually I have a class for tefillah especially. I'm ashamed to tell you how many people show up.
Okay, so again, everybody has to deal his Chabad house how he feels it's appropriate, how to do it. But we have to know halacha. Okay, what is if a kohen? You have a kohen. He's in the middle of Berchas Krishma, and they call him Yamoid. He's the only kohen over there, and they call him Yamoid. Moshe Yankel Ben Zurach HaKohen should go up, and or he shouldn't go up. Now there's a machlokes poskim if he should go up. Or no, he shouldn't go up. And some poskim say he should go up, because if not, people will say he's a pugam. In Hilchas Kehena, there's a concept that you cannot, for instance, if you have a coin and you don't have a Levi, that coin says twice, yeah? You don't call up a second coin. Because if you call up a second coin, we will say that the first coin was basically a pogum. It's not a real coin, it's a cholol, whatever it should be. So Mishim Kvoidoi, we say that he should say 2 times the bracha. So over here, if he's going to walk out, if he's not going to be oiler, he's going to be a pagam, and therefore you should be oiler. You should go and say the brachas. Some poskim say no, that you shouldn't. L'halacha l'maaseh, we paskin that he should go up and he could basically be oiler, and that's only a coin, even in Yisrael. If a person holds him in like Krishman and they call him up, although there's a lot of other people to give aliyah, since they called you up, you could go and be mafsik, say borchi, you could say the brocha, but you cannot read together with the balkoira what he learns. You should only listen. Agam, it's not to push it to be oile and not reading, just listening. But according to Lamaisa, we passed that the Evet HaKapurim, b'shas Chag, or the whatever, that you could be oile without reading too. So therefore, anyone who gets aliyah when he's in the middle of Berchas Krishma, he should go up, say the bracha, barchi, and he could be oile l'toira.
So that lines up with what we said before, because like before we said that just like you can't answer amin to a place you can't be mafsik by. So we know that in that place you can answer amin. So if you can answer amin, you can make the bracha. They go hand in hand, right?
Not necessarily. Other brachas is not necessarily you can make brachas. You cannot make a bracha.
No, but by those brachas you can answer them. The bracha before the Torah and after the Torah. If you're not the oil, you can answer those brachas.
You can answer omen on that bracha. Yeah. So it
goes hand in hand with the fact that you can make the bracha.
You
just
could
like
even say, yeah, okay, yeah. So that's all these things is even bein aprokam. As I mentioned before, after emes v'yatziv, it's called bein aprokam, and it has all the halachas of bein aprokam because there's nothing. Ezra's is not a separate paying. But when it comes to another thing is very important, you cannot stop between Hashem Elokaychem and emes. You always have to say Hashem Elokaychem emes. If you want to wait, you have to say it after emes because we will learn it out from the posik. You have to say Kaykev Hashem Elokaychem. You have to say emes. We don't stop for anything. We don't stop between Hashem Elokaychem and emes. When it comes to after Gol Yisrael, after the bracha after Shemana Krishma, because the bracha after Shemana Esrei. After Krishma, the one bracha in Bashachras is all from emes till Gol Yisrael is one bracha. It's not separate bracha. Although in the Siddur it's separate pieces, it's one bracha. So once you finish Gol Yisrael, you don't answer anything. No umains, kaddish, barchi, nothing. It is as if you started Shabbanas. Now, regarding the Gol Yisrael, the omen of the Gol Yisrael itself, that bracha, we have a big machlokas. Some points can say that you should answer Uman on the Berchas Gol Yisrael. Since it's a bracha which you just said it, you could answer Uman. Some persons say, don't answer, stop by Shir Chadushu, because till Shir Chadushu, you could still answer, it's still considered bein abruchim, and answer Omen Agul Yisroel. Other person say, what kind of business is this? How could you answer a bracha, Omen, and a bracha which you hold in the middle of the bracha? So you cannot wait Bashir Chadosha to answer Omen Agul Yisroel. Our meaning is, by the way, the meaning of Chabad is that we finish the bracha Gol Yisroel together with the Shlich Tzibur. In such a case, this is the best thing. Because as I mentioned last week, whenever you answer a bracha together with Shlich Tzibur, you don't have to answer Amen, and it is as if you answered Amen. So therefore, if you answer Gol Yisroel together with the Shlich Tzibur, that's the best thing to do, and that's how our meaning is. Some people, some communities, when it comes to Baruchat Hashem, they say Gual, and they don't say Yisroel, because they don't want you should answer Amen. By us, we say it loud. You could, why? Because since you answer together with the Shlich Tzibur, it's not a problem to answer it. To answer, finish the word Yisroel. But again, our meaning is to finish it together with the Shlich Tzibur. In the obvious, we don't answer Amen. So again, on this bracha, we don't answer Amen. We don't go according to the posting which say you can answer Amen after Berches Gol Yisroel.
Could I ask, by Habaycha B'Amisol, by Ahava, both in the morning and in the evening, it says that the Chazan says it quietly.
Yes.
He finishes quietly. Why by Gol Yisrael not?
Oh, that's a very good question. Very good question. Then the kid said, "What is Gol Yisrael is basically we want to answer Amen. So we finish Gol Yisrael as if we finished the bracha together with Shlich Tzibur. We don't want to answer because we won't connect the bracha right to Krishma. We want by an Krishma. So therefore, we don't say it. We say it quietly as if the bracha didn't answer. That's the chilek of Gol Yisroel. It's no under sibas, but it's a good question which is needs even more explanation to it. I'll just give you the Nikida.
What's the reason behind connecting Likechem and Emes, considering Emes is not actually part of the Parsha, it's part of V'yatziv.
Correct.
Emes V'yatziv, it's not in the Parsha in the Torah, it's not there, Emes.
Because there is a pasig, there's a pasig in Yirmiyah, V'Hashem Elekechem Emes. So Chazal said, while there is a pasig Hashem Elekechem Emes, when we connect the Krishma together with the Baruch HaShlachar Krishma, which starts Emes, we should say Hashem Elekechem Emes like the pasuk which is in Yirmiyah.
There's a famous story with the Alter Rebbe that somebody asked him, "Where's there a pasuk that begins and ends the same way?" And he said, "Where Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say Emes." Ani Hashem Elokechem, Moshe said, Ani Hashem Elokechem.
Okay. Okay. The final halachas of the Alter Rebbe and Simon Samach is that you have to say Berches Emes V'yatze B'Shachris, and Emes V'Minu you have to say Ba'arvis. And if you didn't say it, although you're Yoitze Berches Krishma, because the brachas are nicht ma'akim the Berches Krishma, if a person said Krishma and didn't say Berches Krishma, he's still Yoitze. Aber afi Piken hat nicht Yoitze gewesen, the bracha Kitekina. Why? First of all, why do we say Emes V'yatze in the morning, and why do we say Emes V'Minu at night? There's a passage which says in Tillam, Lahagid B'Boker Chasdeche V'Manoscha B'Laylis. That means in the morning you have to praise Hashem what He did already, which He did. Therefore, since we are going to say this bracha praising Hashem of the Geulas Yitzis Mitzrayim, which will happen, therefore we have to say Emes V'yatziv, which is Ala'uva. At night you have to have a munah, which is going to happen. And over there we say Haftocha. The same as the Arbon Shloim helped us till now, He's going to help us also further on. And therefore, we have to say in the morning Emes V'yatziv in Emes V'Minu. By the way, if a person changed, is Meyoitze. Even if it changed one of Emes V'yatziv and it changed this, Meyoitze given Akaponam. But Akaponam, this is what we have to say. And you have to say, Yitzis Mitzrayim, Kris Yamsiv, Makis B'choyer Be'emes V'yatziv. And if a person did not do it, he has to say over again. That means if a person started Emes V'Yatzif, but he skipped half of Ezra's, and he only finished the end of Ezra's. Therefore, he skipped the whole Kris Yamsiv, he skipped the whole Makis B'choiras, but in the Shoytzik in the Brucha, he has to say over again the Brucha, because like Berg, the same as we say by Berg Samosn, if a person didn't say Bris V'Soyre, yeah, by Bris V'Shachsamtiv Z'Raini, Matrosa Shamadotoni, he was not Yois Berg Satoyer. So in Berges V'Emes V'Yatzif, it's a choif to say Tzis Mitzrayim, Malchis, Kris Yamsiv, Makis B'choiras. The rest of them, if you fail the word or two, it's not a big deal. B'chal, we have to know, when a person misses words in a long bracha, it's nicht gefährlich. If he says the beginning right, the end right, in the middle he failed and he skipped some words, it's nicht ma'akev. The ikir is haschulas ha-brucha and the end of bracha. That's called kol ha-mashanim and medbayik shtabu chumam. In the middle of a long bracha, that's not a me'ik la'akev. Small bracha for sure is a problem. You say shachli b'dvura and you messed the word, basically you didn't say the bracha. But the long bracha, we hold that basically, if you said the beginning and the end, that's not a problem if you miss some words afterwards. The final halacha the Alter Rebbe says is if a person does not have time. Very interesting halacha the Remu says. The Remu says like this. The Remu says, let me just read you the Remu. Mishio onas v'duchik, the Remu. Very interesting halacha. We know you have to be masmach gilal tefillah. If a person basically started davening and he's a oinus, he says that he cannot daven after Krishma. He has to go away. He has to go whatever. So then he could stop after Emes, and then when he comes back, he starts from V'Yatziv and it finishes the bracha. Why? Because we want he should say Masmazan Gilul Tefillah. But Lamasa is paskin in Shazoi, and we paskin that he should rather say Krishma without brachas, and only after when he has time he should sit down and say the brachas, Berachas Krishma and Krishma, and then be Masmach Gilul Tefillah, and not be Masik after Emes, because you have no right to be mafsik after Emes in middle of a bracha, which is the last bracha of Berachas Krishma. You cannot be mafsik immediately because you don't have time. Don't start the bracha, just read Krishma. This is what we do excited. If we feel we don't have time to chaparam before Zman Tefillah, we will put on Krishma. You say Krishma before davening. Yeah, this is how we do. Say Krishma before davening, and then we say Berachas Krishma. Okay, so this is Sima Samapuf. Now we'll go over to Simanin High, which I think you learned too, yeah? Simanin High you learned in the program? It is part of the...
Yeah.
It's part of it.
In the Kaddish.
Okay, so let's go to Simanin High. Go over the halachas. And... okay, a person has to say 7 kadashim. There's a pasuk sheva b'yom ilaltichu. Yeah, 7 sheva b'yom, 7 times a day haltichu. So therefore, we say 7 kadashim, which is a chiyuv, which is 1 after Pesika de Zimra. That means before Barchi. 1 after davening. Yeah, that's the kaddish after Tachnun. Number 3, after Asher Vulatzion. Number 4, after Ashrai for Mincha. Number 5, after Shemoneh Esrei by Mincha. Number 6, after Krishma by Ma'ariv. Yeah, which is basically before Shemoneh Esrei by Ma'ariv. And number 7, after Tfilas Arvis, after davening, you say Kaddish Tiskabel, that's 7. This is how the Alter Rebbe holds. So nicht push it, other points can give a different, which is important. But again, Alter Rebbe, which I don't want to elaborate because it's very brilliant. If you learn the whole Sigya from Torbes Yosef and the Shulchan Aruch and the Rishonim, you're going to see Alter Rebbe changed over here from other points. Very brilliant because they're all because of good reasons. But this is what we have, that we have to say Kedashim. Namasa Pikabola, we say 15 Kedashim. Famous 15 Tezvuf Kedashim, Tezayin Kedashim, 16 Kedashim. And the Rebbe has a letter regarding this Tezayin Kedashim. But Akapurim did 7 is a choiv, and a person has to be makput he should be makput to hear 7 Kedashim a day. The rest is only a minig. Akapurim, he should make sure to have this Kedashim. Now, we know we cannot say no Kaddish, no Borchi, no Kedusha, only if you have 10 people. Because then, Dovish Begdisha needs 10 people. Since it says in the Pasuk, yeah, that you should be Magdish, Kodesh, the Maibishten, Betoch B'nai Yisrael. Betoch B'nai Yisrael means Ba'aida, Aida of Klal Yisrael. And how much is Aida? How much is called the Aida? Yeah, 10 people. How do you know 10 people is Aida? Because the Rebbe is Ad by Baraglam. Yeah, Ad Musela Aidu Ruazeh. Yeah, and that was 10 people because Yeshiva Kulev was not Ru. So therefore, we see Aida is 10 people, and now we know as whenever we say Dovish Begdish, we have to have 10 people. Nice of the Rebbe. How come we learn this thing Dafka from Maraglim, which was Rishum? Okay, we have time. Look up at the Sikha. But like upon them, this is we have to say Dovish Begdisha when you have 10 people. Now let me make it clear. We're going to come more in detail a little bit later, but I'm going to make you a klal. It's very important to understand. Alter Rebbe makes a big chilik between Dovish Begdisha and Chazuras Hashatz. Chazuras Hashatz, to say the Hoich Shemoneh Esrei, is not enough 10 people. You have to have also Tisha Oinim. That means you have to have 9 people which could answer Omain on each bracha. When it comes to answering, make a Kaddish or Borchi or Kedusha, you don't need to have 10 people which could answer. If you have people which basically davened already, or they're in the middle of davening, or whatever it should be, we'll see soon, you could still answer. That means Dovish Begdisha needs 6 people, a Roif Tzibber. Where does he happen afkimen? Between Shachar Mincha and Meir. Shachar Mincha, we have Chazoras Hashatz. So since we have Chazoras Hashatz, you cannot start Chazoras Hashatz, the Hoich Shemoneh Esrei, only if you have 9 people answering. It means the Shlich Tzibber is 1, plus another 9 people which you can answer, that's 10 people. If you have only 8 people, you cannot answer Chazoras Hashatz. When it comes to a place where you don't answer Chazoras Hashatz, for instance, Ma'ariv, you don't need to wait for 9 people. And that's very important to know. Sometimes you daven in a Chabad house or in a shul, and you have 10 people, and you have 1 person or 2 persons are davening lange Shemoneh Esrei. Yeah, you have 6 people which are already after Shemoneh Esrei, and 2 people which are very long Shemoneh Esrei. Now again, the correct thing is to do to wait that they should also answer Omeyesh Marabu in the Alter Rebbe's rights in Shulchan Aruch. If you can wait, it's not very long, you should wait for them. You should be mazaki them also to say Omeyesh Marabu. But again, if you don't have 10 people, because 2 people are davening a big lang Shemoneh Esrei, yeah. So therefore, if you have 6 people which finish davening Ma'ariv, Shemoneh Esrei, you could say Kaddish, because it is no Chazoras Hashatz, it's only Kaddish. Kaddish is enough if you have most of the Tzibur, which is 6 people, finish davening. So it's very important to understand this chilik. Shachar Simcha, you have to have 9 people answering. Ma'ariv, you don't need to have 9 people. You have to have 10 people in that room, but again, you don't have to have 9 people of answering. And the same will also go to Kedusha. If you have people who basically, now again, the Kedusha mean not Chazoras Hashatz. As I mentioned before, there's such thing as Priestess Shema. If a person basically did not daven, he didn't hear Kedusha, and he wants to make a single Kedusha, that's not Chazoras Hashatz. That's called Poeres HaShema. He is permitted to say, even if you have only 6 people which could answer with him Kedusha. That means you have 4 people who are still davening, or they can answer, they don't know how to answer, whatever it should be. 6 people is enough. But Chazoras Hashatz, you cannot start Shemoneh Esrei without you have total minyan, which is 9 people to answer. Now, if a person starts davening, also a very important halacha, which is the guy for Chabad houses, if a person started davening, yeah, and people walked out, it started Hoyach Shemoneh Esrei, and people walked out, is the halacha that you could finish Shemoneh Esrei as if that nobody walked out. You could say Tachnan, Kaddish, Asher V'Lotzion, and Kaddish Tiskabel. As if, since you started Chazuras Hashatz with 10 people, you don't have to stop in the middle. The same will go.
You say the Kaddish after Tachnan?
Also the Kaddish after Tachnan.
You could say that?
You could say that, yeah. Till after Kaddish of Asher V'Lotzion, is part of the halacha of Shemoneh Esrei, and you could say it. You could finish it, and it's Masmach Al Yom. People are very rushing, and they leave. You look around. The same will be Ma'arev. The person davens Ma'arev and looks that right after Shemoneh Esrei, one person left. He didn't wait for the Kaddish. You can say the Kaddish Tiskabel, since there is a chelik of the Shemoneh Esrei.
That's what, because the Tiskabel Tzloisin goes on.
It goes on the Tefillah. Yes, correct. But you cannot learn in the Torah anymore. If when it comes to, you can't learn. That means in such a case, you see yourself at the end of Shemoneh Esrei that you don't have 10 people, you could say the Kaddish of after Tachna, but you cannot take Kaddish after Torah. You say right away afterwards the Asher V'Lotzion, and you say the Kaddish is Kabel. This you finish. You cannot say any more Kedaishim afterwards.
But then if you get 10, you can line after, no?
Yeah, if you have 10, you can line after. Yes, correct. The same will go also Yoitzeroir. If you start Yoitzeroir, and again, the Alter Rebbe writes it once upon a time that used to say B'koil Ram. So you could also say Shemoneh Esrei, but by us it's nicht Tzifel Negaya, because but it's Negaya. For instance, you say you said Kaddish after Yishtabach, you said Borchi, and then you see basically you don't have a minyan. You could say that means even in the middle of Kaddish before Borchi, you find yourself without a minyan, you could still say Borchi. But again, only what you need to say till after Asher V'Lotzion. Afterwards, you cannot say it anymore. And in such a case, if you see yourself that in the middle of Yoitzeroir, you left one person, the minyan leaves, you could daven till Shemoneh Esrei, but you cannot start Hoyach Shemoneh Esrei, Chazoras Hashatz, since you don't have. That means only whatever is connected, it's one part. That means Yoitze till after Shemoneh Esrei is one part. Yeah, you cannot stop in the middle. Chazoras Hashatz is till after Asher V'Lotzion is one part. But if you in Krista Torah is not a part of this part. So therefore, if you finish Yoitzer Amoyres and you see you don't have a minyan, you can down till after Shemoneh Esrei, Tfilas Lachash, but you cannot start the Tfilah of Chazoras Hashatz.
Is that only if one person leaves?
What?
What if 5 people leave? You only have 5
Same
people.
thing. That you have to have most of the people. 6 people, you have to have Rav Minyan, Rav Tzibur. The Rav Tzibur you have to have. Because as I mentioned before, to say Kaddish, you have to have a Rav Tzibur. Then the Alter Rebbe goes the halacha which we mentioned before, that if you don't have only 9 people, you cannot be Metzaref women, you cannot be Metzaref a cotton, even with a chimish. Only v'ayin limches if you did it. Okay, this we mentioned already before. By what age could you be Metzaref a person to minyan? By 13 years old. Now, although according to anything which has a mitzvah has a deraisa, you have to know for sure that that child has shtei saras. That means that makes him for a gadol. Until we don't know, you cannot use him for a thing which is a mitzvah deraisa. But by davening, if a person is 13 years old, if you don't know if he has shtei saras, then you could rely, since it's only a drabonon, especially to have a minyan is only a drabonon. The Alter Rebbe says tefillah mid drabonon, but other poskim say the tefillah lav dafka is mid drabonon. We know it's a big machlokas if tefillah is mid drabonon or not. So therefore, lav dafke, the tefillah is midrabun, but kapurim tzibur is midrabun. Therefore, once he turns 13 years old, if you don't know for sure that he has a problem or issue, he's a soris, then we could be mitzar of him to minyan, and you don't have to think maybe he doesn't have shtais haris. If a person has a minyan of 9 people, 10 people, but one person is in middle of Shemoneh Esrei, middle of davening, yeah, again, we could say Dover Shebekdish, as I mentioned before, because since basically for Dover Shebekdish we need Rav minyan, that's enough. And even though he's in the middle of davening, it's okay. Look, that Taz, the Shechanor says that the Messiah says that you can be mitzaref, or the Teresuv says that you cannot be mitzaref. Now, the Rebbe Paskins like Teresuv, if you have a person which is sleeping, that it's not kedai to rely on a person, and you should basically wake him up. He should be awakened when we say Chazoras Hashatz, or even Duvish Begedisha. Then the Alter Rebbe goes into the whole shallow when a person becomes 13 years old. And if we can come back afterwards, because I want to come to a halacha afterwards, which is much important. And I'm afraid maybe we'll not have the time. If we have time, we'll come back to this halacha. For instance, if a person was born cute halachas, when a person becomes a mitzvah, it's kedai if you have children. If a person, for instance, was born oderishan, and when does it become bar mitzvah? When it comes 10 years later, there isn't 2 others. Or sometimes could be a scenario that you have 2 people, one was born a few days before the other one, and the second guy becomes bar mitzvah before the first one. For instance, one was born and oderishan, and one was born oder sheni. And when they become a mitzvah, which is one was born oderishan, chof oderishan, and the other one was born beit oder sheni. So there's a difference of 12 days between the 2 children, but since they become a mitzvah in a year, which other is only one other, the guy who was born base other sheni becomes a mitzvah base other, and the guy who was born chof other rishon becomes a mitzvah chof other. So he basically becomes a mitzvah after the other person. This is a nice scenario, which is we could see when a person becomes bar mitzvah. Oh, so now we go to halacha, which is a very important halacha. It's very important, and we all must probably know this halacha regarding tzirav minyan, because we had Rahman al-Islam Corona 2 years ago, and we had the whole shaila. If you make a minyan in the backyard and you're not together, you see one person from one porch, one person on the other porch. Yeah, remember all at least in our communities, which in Crown Heights, in Borough Park, in Muncie, all these places, we had this shaila, 5 people on one porch, 2 on the second porch, another 2 on the other porch. Could you be mitzvah or nicht? What's the law? So first, the Alter Rebbe writes like this: you have to be in one room when it comes to a minyan. 10 people has to be in one room. If a person, 9 people is in one room, and 1 is in the other room, and we don't see each other, that's not considered a minyan, and you cannot say kaddish, you cannot say anything. So sometimes you have a minyan of 10 people, and one person gets a phone call in the middle of davening, and he wants to pick it up, but he's a very ehrlich guy. He doesn't want to talk in a shul on a phone. So what does he do? He goes out to the foyer. So now, booms, you're stuck with 9 people. The halacha is, they're not being mitzaref, and you cannot say dvorim shebekdisha, you don't have 10 people. Not only that, even if it's not out of the room, in the middle of the room, there is some kind of wall with a door, and he's in the doorway. So even in the doorway, you have a problem, at least where the door closes and outside. So again, if you don't see him, you're going into problems. If he's in another room, you cannot be mitzaref. If you are if you see each other, so that's something else. So therefore, if a person is in a shul, and in the back of the shul there's a cheder sheni, and the person went out to the cheder sheni, but he stands in a way that we could still see him from the cheder sheni into the cheder rishon. Yeah, in such a case, we say, since roim alias aili, we can be mitzaref. Although he's not in the same room, but since we could see him, that will be fine. So now, going back to our shala, you have 5 people on one porch, 3 people on another porch, 2 people on a third porch. Could you make a minyan in such a case? The answer is, according to the Alter Rebbe, roim alias aili, you have no problem of making such a minyan. I can put him b'shas chak for sure, and you can daven and have a minyan. And that's why most of the people relied on this psak of the Alter Rebbe, and there was all kind of minyanim, Porsche minyanim, because they were rowing alias aili. Not all the poskim agree with this. Some poskim say that by tefillah it's not correct, because you have to understand this halacha is a halacha which is in hilcha zimun. Zimun also, you know, you have to have 10 people for a lekenu, 3 people for not a lekenu. Over there, we have this halacha that roim ayin aili be mitzaref. The Rashba has a suffix if the same thing goes also by tefillah. So some poskim, including the Mishnah Berurah, with other people, say that's a din only by zimun, it's a din only by berach hamazon, and by tefillah you cannot be mitzaref 10 people roin alias aili. There's no such a thing. But the Alter Rebbe in the Rashba is mistapik. He has a suffix. The Alter Rebbe paschens like the suffix of the Rashba. You know, like the famous word of the Friedrich Rebbe once said that the Rebbe Rashab writes something v'ulai, and he wrote already that it is like this. So the Friedrich Rebbe says what the Rebbe Rashab has a ulai b'mir is for sure. What the Rashba has a suffix, Alter Rebbe paschens like this, roinas aili aili, then you could be mitzaref. So therefore, if a person is in one room, most of the people are in one room, and the other people are in another room, and we could see each other, then it is considered he's in one room, and you could daven, say kaddish, kedusha with alles. Now again, if such a thing happens, in my shul I try, they should come in, because after all we have a lot of poskim which says that it's not by tefillah. Although the Alter Rebbe does paskim by tefillah, but we have a lot of poskim which say it's not. If you can, bring him in. If you can, the Alter Rebbe is a poskim. We pass that the Alter Rebbe, but always you know that whenever there's a machlokes poskim, and other poskim hold oldish, and we could, so to speak, be machman. Like other shittas, why not? Why should it be machman? So if you can, ask. It's one guy, bring him in. But again, if he doesn't want to come in for whatever reason, or he can't come in, or he's in the middle of talking on the phone, since we see that person, that's enough. If we don't see him, you cannot say kedusha, you cannot say kaddish, it's a problem. But if you could see him, it is okay. Now, by the minyan of the porch, we had some kinds of scenario that we have a couple of porches. Now, one porch did not see the other porch, but we both saw the shlich tzibur. That means we have one porch on one street, other porch on other street, and we had the shlich tzibur downstairs, which both porches could see the shlich tzibur. So it's not the roin alias aili, but we both could see the shlich tzibur. So the Alter Rebbe, that's also good enough. Why? Because since we are basically everybody's focusing on the shlich tzibur is machaber these 2 minyanim, and therefore it is considered that all the 10 people are in one place, and you could daven, it's a fully minyan, you could daven, say kaddish kedusha, and even chazuras hashatz, because they are in one room. And this is what most of Klal's rule relied on by Corona. Some poskim again disagree, and I know some people didn't daven such a minyan. They daven b'yichidas. They said it's in any case it's not a minyan. But again, Alter Rebbe, he's our posik, and that's considered in roina asilas aili, and that's enough. Now again, we mentioned before. If
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
In my shul, we have it's a big room, it's a big sanctuary, and we have a mechitza going, and it's side by side. You know what I mean? The women on one side and the men on the other side. And of course, in the morning when we have shachris, there's no women there. So some people, especially with the corona, they wanted to sit in the women's section because it was more separated. But it's one room, really. And even if you look hard, you could see each other. He could see from the other section. There probably is no problem, I would assume.
Yeah, it is no problem. And the same will also go in the women's section. So there's a big machloikas. Let me check. In your case, it's no problem. It's one room, and you have some mechitza, and it's not a problem. Even if we're going to see soon, only we have mamash a doorpost. Just if you have a mechitza in the middle, and that's not considered that it should be a problem as a separate room. It's a mechitza letznius. But there's a machloikas. If, for instance, if a person you have 9 people in the men's shul, and when you have a balcony, let's say 9 people in men's shul, and 1 person is in the ladies section, can you be matzarav as a minyan or not? That is a big machlok sachronim, and we try that you shouldn't rely, because a lot of people say it's not considered as a minyan, you daven as a minyan, because that's a separate room, and although they could listen, and the person in the women's section could see you, that's a problem to be matzarav as a minyan. But if there is a minyan downstairs and a person davens in the women's section, he is considered he's davening tefillah b'tzibur. You understand what I'm saying? You see the chilik? To be matzarav, to create a minyan, we have poskim who say you cannot create a minyan that way, because it is something separate, totally separate, and you cannot be matzarav that person from that room to your room. But if a person davens, if you have 10 people davening there, and a person is in the women's section, most of the poskim will say that's not a problem. And that's why we know there's a lot of rebbes which they didn't daven together with the tzibur. They daven in a separate room. They daven in shul in a separate room. So according to what we just said, it's not a problem. And it's as if when he davens Shemoneh Esrei, it is as if that he davens with a full minyan, and it's not a problem. But to be matzarav a person from other room till your room, if it's a women's section, which basically it's one room, can man sich verlassen. But in a separate room, you cannot rely on it, because it's not roin eilis, you don't see each other. Not only that, Alter Rebbe says, if you have a small room in back from a big room, and you have a small room, yeah, and most of the tzibur are in the big room, and one person is in the small room, and you don't see him, if it's open totally, that means the small room has no fourth wall. It's not a wall which has a door, has no wall at all. It's broken up, so to speak. So it is as if, since the most of the tzibur are in the big room, the people in the small room are matzarav to minyan. It's as if there is in one room, because since when you are in the small room, you don't have a fourth wall. It's as if you are one of the corners of the big shul. But if most of the minyan are in the small room, and only 4 people are in the big room, since when you stand in the big room, you are going to see, so to speak, a doorpost, although it's not a real doorpost. Again, we're talking about like a T. You understand what I'm saying? We're talking about a T. A T, that means it goes like that. A room like that. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Now, since from when you are standing in the small room, you look into the big room, you have no doorposts. It's open totally. When you look from the big room into the small room, yeah, after all, you have these 2 walls. So that's considered, so to speak, like a doorpost. The Alter Rebbe says, if the majority of the minyan is in the big room and minorities in the small room, then you can be matzaref even if you don't see each other. Because since it doesn't have a wall, and when you're in the small room, you don't have no wall, then it's okay. Even if you don't see each other. If you see each other, that's not a problem. But if you don't see each other, which is considered, so to speak, a separate room, if the majority are in the big room, you can be matzaref. If the majority are in the small room, since when you look from the big room into the small room, you have the two walls, which is from the small room, that's considered, so to speak, a doorpost. And since the other people, most of the people are in the small room, you cannot be matzaref. This is the halacha which we have in this Simanin High. Again, what is Negay l'halacha l'maaseh? I always like to make a conclusion of the halacha l'maaseh. Halacha l'maaseh is that when you are in have a minyan and one person walks out, goes into a smaller room, if you see him, the people see him, you can see him, that's not a problem. Again, if you could ask him to come in, that's for sure good. If you can't see him, it's a problem. Because you don't see him. If you see him, then it's not a problem. And that's a halacha which is masim b'chol yom. People are in the middle of davening, and one walks out. Again, the Mishnah holds roim is not a heter. So according to the Mishnah, if somebody walks into the smaller room, even you can see him, and all the minyan can see him, it's not enough. You have to bring him in. But Alter Rebbe is more lenient in this case, that if roim, that should be not a problem.
It's interesting. It comes up also in Hilchos Eidus, because you have by Eidim, they have to be roim ke'echad. So one's on a porch and another's on a porch. At what point are they? I think it's Siman Chafes. One of them is starif or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that has to be. The shuls which have like 770, a big bima, is the Alter Rebbe writes, even though it's high 10 tefachim and it's wide dalet, it's like a shayuchet dalet tefachim, it's dalet al dalet, and it's, so to speak, a separate, so to speak, sacred entity, because that's why we are permitted to sit when the Sefer Torah is on that bima, because since it is reshis b'fnei atzmoi, so therefore we know when the Sefer Torah stands, we have to stand. We cannot sit. But if the Sefer Torah is on the bima, even when it's standing on the bima, since it's a separate reshis, we don't need to stand. We can sit. Although legabel Sefer Torah ba'odar lochas, it is reshis b'fnei atzmoi. But if you have 9 people which is in the room and one person is on the bima, you can be matzaref in minyan. It's not a problem. Now again, over here also we have poskim which say that it's a problem. But again, Alter Rebbe writes that since it's a tashpish of the Beis HaMedrash, and all the people are basically have a shaykhs to this bima, you don't have a problem. Especially when you can see him. Even if you don't see him, you don't have an issue. Especially if you can see him, that's for sure. That's not a problem. Okay, the final halachas of Simanin High is like this. Also, a halacha which might not be very practical in nowadays, only by some places we're going to see just now. Chabad houses could be practical. The halacha is, there used to be towns that you didn't have a minyan all week. We have it a lot of Chabad houses today's day also. All week they don't have a minyan, only Shabbos they have a minyan. Yeah? When it comes to Yom Neruam, we are makbid that you should have a minyan. Or the whole tzibur should go to a different town and be there for Rosh Hashanah, which a lot of people used to do. Or you should have a minyan. Now, if you have a town which you have 9 people, the whole city is only 9 Fruma people, and one person decides, I want to fly to the Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah. I want to be a 770 for Rosh Hashanah. So basically now he breaks up a minyan. Now you have only 9 people. And what will happen? 9 people will daven b'yichidas. The Alter Rebbe no. You can force him, he has to stay, or if he doesn't want to stay, he has to pay a person as much as it costs. He should come and take his place in order there should be a minyan. We only force him Yom Neruam. You don't force him a regular Shabbos. But Akapunim Yom Neruam, since the minhag Yisrael is that you are makbet to have a minyan by Yom Neruam. So when it comes to Yom Neruam, you have to stay. It should be a full minyan. If you have 2 people, for instance, which want to go away, both people has to chip in to rent. Another guy should come for Yontif, rent 2 people to come for Yontif, because you have to make sure it should be a minyan. If you have, interesting halacha, if you have 11 people in town, one person wants to leave, he doesn't have to pay, you have still a minyan, you can leave. But if 2 people wants to leave, so now 2 people want to leave, and one person is still near it. So both has to chip in for that person. One cannot say, I want to leave and I still leave 10 people. Everybody would say, I leave 10 people. No, since you're 2 are leaving, you have to chip in that you should have another person to come. And it's very important, because sometimes you have a town, a Chabad house, which finally have already 10 people which are from, and one decided that he wants to go away for Yom Tov, for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. You have the right to force him. Either you stay, or you pay me some, you send me a bocher, I don't know what it needs to do. You gotta pay that, it should stay a minyan. Because if not, he cannot say, you go to a different town. Since over here there's an Indian that in this place people should have a minyan, you have to chip in and bring someone who should be mashlim the minyan. But if that's only if you have a town which has 10 people. If you have a town which has 9 people to begin with, yeah, it depends what the minig was. If they had a minyan already once, if a person are living in a yishuv, only 8 people, for instance, yeah, and they want to rent 2 people to bring. How do you divide the money? So the Alter Rebbe goes, if it's a poor person, a rich person, because that's over here. It's not that you have 10 people, one leaves. If a person leaves, he breaks the minyan, he has to pay the full amount. But if you have only 8 or 9 people, and you have to rent 2 or one person or 2 persons, then everybody has to chip in, because everybody has to. Nobody leaves. Everybody has to chip in. And over here is a big shala how you pay. So you have to make a pshora. Half of it pays according to people who have money. Other half of people is dependent how many people. Lefine forces. It is very important that the person have an achrayas for other people and not walk away and break up a minyan. And that's b'chal, every Shabbos is like this. We have a minyan. The Poskim writes, and Piskei brings down that even if you have a minyan and there's another minyan not far away from you, which have a different mitzvah, which you have a Chabad minyan, yeah, and they have 10 people, and there's another Ashkenaz minyan which is down the road, and one person wants to leave, and he knows that if he's going to leave, the Chabad minyan will break up, and there will be people who will not go daven in the other shul. You have to stay there or rent someone else. That's a big chiddush. Although there's other shul, because since you know that this is the way how this minig is, this shul davens this minugam, and if you're going to leave, this minyan is going to break up, and not every people will go to the other minyan, then you have a schayvus to stay in a minyan. It's very important. What you know when it's also important? A regular Shabbos too. A person is in a town which there's only 10 people. There's a bigger charayas to leave that shul. Although as I mentioned before, koifin, it's only yomim nerum. To force him is only yomim nerum. But after all, to have an achrayas not to leave in the poiskim, you have to make sure to stay. You cannot leave a Shabbos if you have only 10 people, and if you're going to leave, then that won't be a minyan. You have to ask someone to come instead of you. You have to pressure a friend which doesn't come to shul. He should come this week. Replace him, but you don't just walk away and break up a minyan because you want to go for Shabbos.
There's a mice out there, no?
What?
This is a shiloh only for Shabbos or weekdays as well?
This will be the weekdays as well. If you have a minyan, so people, you have to have a again, but you cannot force
town
it.
That has many minyanim, but bichlal you have little shtibul minyanim, where if the guy goes out of town for 2 days for a work conference, bichlal there are people that are not going to show up. This 7 o'clock minyan at this shtibul won't have a minyan, so then the achrayas.
But they will go in a different. They will go in a different.
But if you said before, if you know that there are some that are not going to come, even if they're multiple minyanim, sometimes you have people of habit and creatures of habit. If they're not going to go to a different minyan, and you know there are people, if they're not going to come to this 7 o'clock minyan, they're not going to go to the other 6:45 and the 7:15. They're just bichlal, not going to have a minyan. If you know, then it seems there will be a chayes. I can't go to the conference.
Chayes, but it's not a lachelig obligation.
Not a chiyuv, and a chayes, but not a chiyuv.
It's a chayes, yeah, it's a chayes, but it's not a lachelig obligation. It's not an obligation.
I have an interesting situation because in my city, I'm the only minyan. And in the Shulchan, I tell this to people, but of course, fry people don't really pay attention to it. But in the Shulchan it says, "V'chein mokum she'ein minyan tamid bebeis hakneses, koifim zeh b'knesses sheyavoy tamid minyan bebeis hakneses shlo yizbatel tamid."
Yeah.
And at least in Inyan, I generally encourage everybody to at least come to 1 minyan a week, so that we have a.
There's a Maisa from the Chassid was traveling to Lubavitch for Yom Neiroim, and didn't there was the nine in the shtetl, they needed a minyan.
There was what? 9?
There was 9 in the shtetl that needed a minyan on his way to Lubavitch for Yom Neiroim, and they begged him to stay. I think it was a Chassid the Mitlerev, maybe. I might be wrong. Anyways, when he got to Lubavitch, the Rebbe wouldn't talk to him, with nothing. And after whatever it was, he asked for a ticket. He told him that your neshama came down to this world only to be mashlim in their minyan. That's the only reason you came down here.
Yeah. But in Rabbi Berkowitz's case, is Yodua Indian of Koifen Zan Beknosis. Who asked before? Rabbi Gelman? Who spoke up before?
The weekday minyan. Me.
Conference.
Me about weekday minyanim. Yeah, you were the late.
Yeah, that when we said what you said, I said it's not a chiyuv, it's only a chrayas. That's when there is other minyanim in town. But if there isn't, there is only 1 minyan, like Rabbi Berkowitz just said before. There's only 1 minyan in town. You have 10 people. Koifen that he should come down. That's already the Alter Rebbe brings down in the end of the simon. Then there is already an Indian of forcing him. The Alter Rebbe writes at the end of Sif Chufay. Look in. Vafile kol ashunu. Avnem yesh minyan shula miyosh vayir. Koifen liske shlich tzibber. Vafile kol ashunu kan ispal shom tumit. V'chai mukam sha'ay minyan tumit the Beis HaKnesses. Koifen zeh kenuses. Shivoy tumit the minyan Beis HaKnesses. Shlo izvatla tumit. So in the case which there is only 1 shul and then you have to make sure that every person has to come, and you could force him. When we mentioned before, he has a chrais and not forcing, is when you have other shuls, and you know that he's not going to go. You cannot force a person not to come. It's a chrais. You can't force him only when it comes to Yom Narun. But if a place which there is only 1 minyan, you have to make sure that the person comes. It's not a picnic, you know.
But the bottom line is you can't force anybody.
Now, by Berkowitz, how come by now you don't have 500 people who daven minyan? It looks like you're a long time with me.
Why? Because in Rabbi Berkowitz's case, he was going to start giving out knossim. He's going to lose his minyan legamri.
We can't force anybody to do anything.
Oh, that's today's day. Yeah. No, that today's day. But forcing does not necessarily means you're forcing with a stick. Forcing means you have to make sure and talk to them and convince them and whatever.
Yeah, what's it called? I heard from a shliach that he was talking about the idea of kaifenei son. He said on a Chabad house, kaifenei son is with lox and bagels.
But today people don't go for food anymore that much. You know,
if it's sushi,
nobody's starving. They're not going to come for a bagel.
Bagels
Oh, it froze.
No? Hello? We broke up or what?
It broke up.
Yeah, you dropped off for a minute.
We broke up or what? What happened?
You dropped off for a minute. Everybody else was here.
It's a hapsaka ben parsha to
parsha. Okay, in any case, what we see, first of all, we're finishing now, but we have to understand that just to make a conclusion, Hilchas Tefillah, we say it's for children, yeah? Yes, you should learn. They should learn it. We learn the Chashabas. We learn Yeridaya, Hilchas Ribas, Hilchas Yichad, which is all this halacha very important. And some people will say Choshe Mishpet, Dayonas, Ebenezer. But Hilchas Tefillah, that's for children. But now we see that Rechaim Aleph is for all of us. And there's a lot of important halachas which we don't know. And Sayin Hefseg, Sayin Tzirav Minyan, and Sayin of all kind of halachas, which if you don't learn it good, you make a lot of mistakes. And therefore, I am commencing? Is that the right word?
Commending.
You know,
commending
encouraging Lema'an ילמדו, that they put in the halachas of tefillah, because I know a lot when it comes to davening. To eat some davening, skipping my davening. There's a lot of halachas which is very, very important. And that's why it's an Orachaim. Orachaim means everybody has to know it. In Yeridaya, you could ask a Moira Ruah. That's why the Alter Rebbe did not make a Yeridaya, whole Yeridaya. And even what he made a different system. But Orachaim made the full because everybody has to know it. So again, you got to learn Gam Selchus Brochas, Selchus Krishma, Selchus Berg Sapairis. You know how many shalos we have a day on Selchus Berg Sapairis? And it's Rechaim Aleph. It's one of the hardest halachas which we have. And, you know, people are... So again, keep up the good work, keep on learning, and hopefully we'll meet down the road again by Hilchas Yichid, Hilchas Mezuzah, and other more gedichte halachas, which we're gonna meet again after Pesach, I think.
Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you all of you. Zas megedint and a freilichen tumit, as they say.
Amen. I ordered your sefer. I'm waiting to get it.
Me as well.
If anybody has the orders, should write, because you know it's 10,000 halachas. You can always make a mistake. So I keep on getting orders from people. Keep on writing if you have something what to add or to answer. Okay, Zatz Magazine. Good night.
All right. Good night. Good night.